host and coordinating the rest of us, and it's not easy work. So I just really want to honor you, Mai, and say hawa for being who you are. And for those of you who got to see the museum earlier, there's a beautiful show on that Aya is the artist behind as well. The original Aya He's a very talented weaver. We're going to get to speeches soon. Specifically, did I already say the funders? I did, right? I had it down here twice. I was panicking there for a second. So we are concluding the ceremony of reinterring our ancestors. Our ancestors are home. They are happy. They are safe. We are happy. And the more we do for the ancestors as they did for us, the happier we will become as well. So however you all for participating in this good work. We're segueing now, although I'll do some hours later, into the home safe ceremony. Since I'm going to give a really brief, the original museum was much smaller, and where we're going to be later tonight was the original footprint of the museum. It opened in 1976. It started with the repatriation of a number of Poles from the Royal BC Museum, which is a really incredible thing to occur in the 1970s. We did not have another repatriation of belongings into our beautiful collection we care for until 2019. We did not have a collection to begin with. We, meaning the Haidas and our Haida Gwaii neighbors, the Haida Gwaians, we built this museum. We built our collection through friendships, relationships, people donating, finding, going after for various different ways, but we didn't have a repatriation of a belonging again until 2019. Part of that was when my dear friend Lucy Bell let us know that our ancestors' remains were being held in museums. We knew we had to stop that work, and we had to focus on releasing our ancestors. And that started in the mid to late 90s. And in 2005, we thought we had 2 ancestors left to bring home from the UK. Since that time, we've brought home almost 100 more, over 500 ancestors since this work began, and it began before the committee. Today, our ancestors find us. It's amazing. Lucy and I thought we were doing this work so our children didn't have to. And, you know, it would be nice if we didn't have to, but on the other hand, my daughter is grown up in repatriation, and I'm so glad she's doing this work today with us. And then my niece, Lucy's daughter, does the same. And there's others that have grown up in it as well. I should see if when I try and use notes, and then I try and speak off the top of my head, I forget what I was doing. So, anyways, since 2020, so our first repatriation after 2019 was from the Museum of Vancouver, and there's since been another repatriation, so there'll be some pieces that will be spoken about tonight and also in the back. Since 2020, that's 20 plus years of relationship building. That's 20 plus years of working with the media, controlling the media. Watch out, Jake. Just that was a joke. I had to make sure because I don't know if you know how to humor. But working with the media to help the media understand we're not out there to beat anyone up. Our elders taught us. The people in the institutions are not the ones who took our ancestors. They're not the ones who took our belongings. And if they're there they're trying to care for them as best as they know know? And if they're working with us, this is a really good thing. This is why they asked us to form relationships first. In 2020, a lot of those relationships and mainstreaming the real history of Canada and Indigenous people and mainstreaming how beautiful repatriation is and that it takes everyone has caused people to do what we set out as a goal, which is we don't want people to have to repatriate. We want people who want our ancestors to come home. We want people who want our belongings to return. The ancestors must have been really helping because it's a good thing we brought II in 2020 because since that time we have over 80 repatriated belongings come in and over 80 contemporary artworks. Now, II is the manager, but this takes our whole team. It takes John Young as collections manager. It takes all our young people, our colonizers, Cherie and Helen in archives. It's a massive job. And then we still work with our committee, and then we go to the chiefs, and we go to the matriarchs, and we go to families and lineages. This is very, it's easy work for us because we know where to go. People ask me, what's your specialty? I say, I don't have one except knowing where to go. And so tonight we're celebrating Palakatha, home safe, 160 minimum Inahan pieces home. It's amazing that not only do people want our belongings to come home, but they are seeing this as a place to donate contemporary artworks made under free and prior informed consent, made to go out in the world, and they're like, we want them to come here too, and that's really special. So I'm going to be quiet now, and well, not right yet, but the first speaker is Chief Fly. He has 2 pieces that were repatriated from the Museum of Vancouver from one of our historic villages. They were repatriated, I believe, in 2022. Oh, you're right there. I was waiting around trying to look for you, seeing if you were coming down the stairs. Stalling because I didn't know where you were. And he also had one ancestor from Coyote.
Hello, I'm nice to meet you. Welcome. So I'm here to welcome you here. This is where we trace our ancestors. This is where we came out of the water the last time. According to our legends of our history, this is the 3rd time we've come into our first time was in the air. Nobody tells us what happened, why we left, and we came out of the earth. And this time around the water, we've got one more chance. We'll see if we can, what we can do better. I'd like to welcome you all here. You took all the thank yous away from me, it makes me hard. So we got 2 of our repatriated projects on the table here. We will be taking them back down to where they came from. It would have been a beautiful day to take them down the water. It really was nice. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Hope you have a good rest of your evening.
Our next speaker is Chief Dansu, and we're not going to sing, but we want to wish a happy anniversary to Chief Dansu and his wonderful wife, Rosemary. Dansu has had a couple of pole fragments as well repatriated from the Museum of Vancouver.
Today became a proud warrior. And I'm thanking all those folks that do all the hard work to bring our ancestors back home. I know it's tough work. There are warriors today. And thank you for all that hard work that you do for us. Anyway, I'm here to speak on peace. One of the repatriation pieces. I don't know the history of it, how it became taken and how it came back here. But it comes from an old mortuary poem from one of our old cities, out at River Beach, from up in Cusa area. We made wonderful things, wonderful totem poles. And each one was a major reason for us as a people, where we come from, our history, our belongings, stuff like that, our ties together. There's a written account of this sailor coming around the corner in the sailboat, and he writes down in there that they come upon one of our villages, that these people that he seen wandering around in front of the village didn't make that. He attributed it to people that were ahead of us. And they made it for us when we came and started doing that. We couldn't believe that we could do that. Anyway, Percy, our old, one of our Gdansk chiefs, some years ago, we drove over in Rupert, walking along down the floats, and we happened to look down on one of the, I think it was a sailboat, and had fragments of our totem pole on board. And it got like that, people going around looking at our stuff, figuring they can come along, take a piece, take a pole, whatever they want. Percy went up to the police and told them what we see. We went down there and took it. I don't think they got charged for it, but they got the pieces back. It was about how those people were feeling about how they could just take. So the repatriation committee taking back our belongings, our ancestors. And use that word. How dare they? How dare they? They couldn't do that today. But in those days, they did. But we're on another path today, and all this good work that makes it good for us all. All of us turning into warriors.
Chief Gdansk had 5 ancestors from his village of Skidegat Repatriation today. One of them was a child in our committee when we do that. We look at children and older adults. He's been very pivotal in our work on repatriation, and it's wonderful he's here in Skidegat.
Thank the repatriation committee, and I do see them at work. I go, she's not making it up, they working hard. And to our guests, nice to see you here. I've been through, I think, every one of those collections. You guys are working out there. How there's one time I was looking at a carving, in the way I was looking at it, I was thinking to myself, following the line, seeing the proper,
somebody who was as alive as I was then had decided of the same way as a side and since then, that's how I looked at all these pieces of art, the old stuff, but even the new stuff, like Robert, Jim, and see how they think. And it's amazing thing that we inherit this art form, this land, this, the whole culture that makes us who we are. And the people who are gone now, certainly their spirits do not continue to dwell in the home. The spirits are amongst us. Some even spread far and wide into other countries and that is the nature of spirit. And so for all of us who again get to see these things and feel these things, that is what it is a way of seeing how people thought, how people's mind worked, and for anybody who's artistic, they can never fail to amaze us what they come up with, the way in which they put it together, the clean lines and amazing little details, and the feeling that they're able to convey to the people who look at it. And that's what it was for, is to express who we are as a people in relation to this fact. And so, thank you to everybody who's come and supported this. All the people who came from around me.
How they began that. And we will also recognize Jingwas and Sani ones in the room. I would so much for attending. I heard Jingwas just arrived too, so that's really lovely. Welcome home. Our next speaker is Buksang Franz, Robert Davidson. We invited him to speak because a couple of years ago he donated a 5-skilled spruce hat and woven by Selena Blatrovich, as well as 5 or 6, I'm sorry, I forget the number right now, really beautiful prints by his son Ben Davidson. After that, we started getting a lot of Robert Davidson donations. So there's 3 really incredible gold pendants. One has ebony in it, and including the necklace that were donated by Chang Sun. There's a gold bracelet donated by the Cole Foundation. There's a couple of silver bracelets donated by Donald Ellis. And Robert is related to so many of the other artists from the contemporary works that were donated in particular, but also some of the smaller, not smaller, but where we do happen to know some of the historic pieces who made them. So if we could have Buksang Franz and share a few words with us.
How
do you want on it? How is a big word here. It's a big word and used many times tonight. And I feel it. One of the other meanings of the word I got from Diane Brown was when you hear good news, you use the word hope. So tonight and last night we celebrated the return of the bones of our ancestors. And it was very moving for me yesterday to listen to the committee on the work that they've done over the years. And that's what they talked about starting 30 years ago. I did see many of the bones in my travel, in my study of the art forms in the museums, but I never thought anything of it. But the committee went the next step further and made sure that they came back home. I know it also opened the door to repatriate many of the art pieces, the masterpieces that were created by the old masters. When I was a child, there was only a handful of elder men carving art in Massive and here in Skidegat. Except for the exception of one lady here in Skidegat, the elder Fuller, who carved art. And the inspiration for that, those people, came from fuzzy photographs. A book largely created by the museum in Ottawa. There was not one of those pieces in the Massive left when I was a child. And I pay tribute to those men and the families for maintaining the thread from the old masters to the present day to keep the art alive. The art is our language. It also transcends generations. To have the pieces come back to the museum here allows the up-and-coming artists, people who want to become artists, and those who are practicing the art, can use these pieces for inspiration. And know that in order to innovate, we need to understand what the foundation of art is. You can't just say, do a ribbon, but it has to come from that foundation. Very much like our language. When I learn a sentence or a word, Melanie, for example, would tell me I would imitate her, what she was saying. If I'm not saying it right, she'll correct me. The art form is the same way. We need to learn from our old masters in order to expand on our understanding of what makes good art. One time we were performing for dancers for Jimmy made a paddle for the flapper. And about some people call, and normally probably would be interested dance, cigarette paddle, and dancing around the hall. I said, what's that for? He says, I don't know, I just made it up. So she was able to make it up because she understood horticulture. And let's say, now that we have these incredible pieces here in the museum, let that be the foundation where you grow from. Here, look at the pieces. You're creating, I like to think of it as an interchange. But when I'm creating, when I first started to learn, I was actually mentally copying from the old masters. So that's all I learned. And I pretended that it was mine, but now many of the pieces that I imitated are out there now. You honestly say, yeah, I copied that one. And also, I want to expand another high word, e-general. It's a word to describe a match, and the meaning is to imitate. So when we're studying the old masters, when we look to our own creations, we're imitating what we saw. So thank you, to the videos. We need creation videos. How you want to, I can't say it any bigger than that, for the work that you've done, persevered, and opening the door for the museums to give back the bones, and also give back the art. Many of the art pieces were stolen, as was mentioned earlier. And I'm so happy it's coming back. Oh.
Robert, and we would also like to thank you for all the work you've done for our nation. There's different, I don't know that you would call yourself a repatriator, but there's different forms of repatriation, and Robert's work for decades now has allowed us to know that we can bring back who we are, we can put ourselves back together, and we can move forward into the future. Your work is great, Robert. How you are. Are you here? I mean, Lucy? She might have had to leave because her little granddaughter. Okay, I'm just going to say a couple words about Scott. A long week. Lucy Bell, Dr. Lucy Bell. In the repatriation, actually it started a little earlier. The bringing home of our ancestors' remains, as I mentioned earlier, actually started before our committee, but through a different process and a different situation, where there were two unethical archaeologists up here who our people trusted in, or yeah, we trusted in them, and then they actually took our ancestors, took belongings. They both paid, had it as own law, let alone their own. And so at that time, the Haida Museum was looking for a new director, and they brought in Madeline and Farland. I'm not sure who, if you're still here tonight, but we do want to recognize Pooja, Madeline and Farland, who became trustee of the Skidegat Museum for almost 30 years. And I remember old Gitquin, Chief John Williams, saying you could tell when we interviewed her, she knew how to listen. She could actually hear what we were saying. And I can tell you this is true. That's why I left a government job with a really good pay and benefits and a future and blah, blah, blah. I love Natalie. I met her from working with her when I was working for Parks, and her goal, because she heard our people, was we needed Hydus working in this museum. We worked together until 2012, and then she still works in the museum today. In the late 90s, before I started working at the museum, she'd been helping both her band councils bring these other ancestors that started repatriation home. And she reached out to Skidegat, Sean Young, my chief son, and myself about it because they still had, she was holding ancestors that had been brought home that had been stolen, but Skidegat wasn't ready yet. Old Massive had started and Skidegat wasn't quite ready. And my dear friend and Andy Wilson were also becoming aware of repatriation, so we started our committee down here. And so we have to recognize and say Hawa Yuan to Natalie and Carlin as well. In the mid to or so later 90s, Dr. Lucy Bell was an intern at the Royal BC Museum, and that is where she learned that we had our ancestors being held that were taken from their graves. And she came home and she started working with her community of Alpha-Gay, and they did a repatriation from the Royal BC Museum. And then her and my dad, Skidegat, and my cousin Vince, who I believe was spoken of yesterday, approached me as well. I am so grateful to do this work for 30 or whatever years with so many people from our community and from away. I couldn't imagine a different life. So I just want to hold my hands up to my Illinois always Dr. Lucy Bell, who just became a doctor last spring. So how Lucy. So as you heard, we started this in the late 90s, and we didn't have any money, and we were all volunteers. And I don't know if many of you have been in a meeting with us, ladies, but you know we can be a bit much at times, and so just perfect. We're just the right amount of staff, we want to say. And so our committee had co-chairs because, of course, we wanted the balance. We agreed that we wanted just a couple people speaking for us because we gave all the information and that we trusted the people who were in co-chair positions to carry that message because we didn't want, as my Illinois said, we wanted to make sure we had the same message going out to media, going out to our communities. We did a lot of community engagement and we met every week as a volunteer committee. So again, we have strong opinions, as those of you who deal with us know. So the next person I'm going to introduce is my Uncle Andy Wilson, who is the co-chair, the counterparts to Nika in those early days and in that really important early work that we did. And so I want to invite Uncle Andy up to say a few words about those early days and repatriation and just acknowledge that it was a tough job dealing with all of us. It was, like, we were standing behind them while they were speaking and tell them what to say. And then, of course, we had to correct them too. We'd go, no, calm down. And, so full of grace and patience. And yeah, just want to have Uncle Andy come up. And this is his son, Saul, who's helping him.
Hello, Irene. Chiefs, ladies held in the high esteem, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. Irene's putting that real life. Very difficult. But when I was co-chair, I didn't realize what I was getting into. Somebody had to learn how to make government boxes, and they said, well, you're the co-chair, you have to learn and then teach other people. In 10 years I was co-chair, we made over 700 government boxes. It wasn't just for repatriation, it was for chiefs, ladies out in the United States, honored guests that came to witness our repatriations. My counterpart was Christian White up in Nassau. When we were all done, we thought we were done, we did the in the morning ceremony. And that's when I stepped down. I got married just after that. And I thought I was done with repatriation, but I got invited all over the world to give talks about repatriation. Lucille and I were invited to a symposium in Maniwaki, Quebec, and they asked us to speak, but before we spoke, there were approximately about 400 people, 500 people. We didn't know what was going on. It got really quiet all of a sudden, and we didn't know what was going on. So we're sitting there, and we could see this old man being escorted in. It was, I asked somebody who it was, and they said it's William Commanda. For those of you who live out in the prairies, he's the medicine man. I can't remember what else they call him. He had a following of about 1,500 First Nations people in Ontario and Quebec. And when his granddaughter escorted him to the front, he sat him down, and she came and called Lucille and I, and she said, my grandfather wants to meet the Haida. So Lucille and I got up, and she escorted us up to introduce us to William Commanda. So after that was done, we sat back down and started getting noisy again. But one of the things he did is he called me that he was sitting down and he said, I want to tell you something. He said that what you're doing with repatriation isn't just for the Haida. It's all for all First Nations people. And I want you to bring that back to your leaders. So I did. When they had a leaders conference in Skidegat, I brought that message back to them. And they gave us a flag that they asked me to present to the chiefs, and I gave it to Gujel. Another time, Nika and I didn't know Nika was going to be there, but we were invited out to the chiefs of Ontario. And we were both guest speakers. And when we were talking, there was a museum down in the States that was closing down, and they wanted to give it back to the chiefs of Ontario. And it was just as quiet as this. It was a back room. And nobody clapped, nobody cheered. I got up, I had to get up and say, we fight to get ourselves back. And they're willing to get it back to you. You guys get every vehicle, every truck, car, whatever you get together and go down and get your stuff. But after that, they started clapping. Anyway, I've traveled right across Canada and the United States over to Europe, and to help people understand what repatriation was and how to do it. So it has been quite a task when I was doing it with Lucille and Nika. I do miss those days, but Nika or Lucille was working at the Royal British Columbia Museum. She phoned me up and asked to come and help sort through some ancestors. I can't remember how many there were. There were 700 ancestors that she asked me, Nick up, Vince, and Vernon Williams to help her sort through it. And so she could call the First Nations people that the ancestors belonged to come and get them. Unfortunately, the second day that I was supposed to go, I had a heart attack, the second one. So I know that we have to be really careful when we do this work. I wasn't prepared for it. When I seen that room, it was just walls of graves full of ancestors. So I haven't done very much since that time. It puts three sins in my heart. And I have to be really careful about what I'm doing. See, when someone has to help me, his legs are really weak. This is my son, who I thought wasn't going to be interested in high art. A couple of years ago, he changed his studies in anthropology. And about 6 months ago, he told me he wanted to learn how to carve after I sold all my carving stuff. And gave away all my books on high art. And now we have to collect all that stuff again. I'm really surprised at what happened in the last couple of days. I was telling Saul that his girlfriend, was graduating from anthropology this May, that the energy for repatriation here is amazing. I haven't seen this kind of energy when we were doing it. It was always a solemn occasion. But that was the beginning. And it's good to hear that the museums are getting help from people we have to fundraise on their own. It's good to hear people are offering money to help the repatriation committee and that they're willing to give it back instead of us fighting for our ancestors and our artifacts. So I'd like to thank those people who are donating the money and volunteering to give those back. And it's great to see young people. I'm really proud of my son. I thought I wasn't going to follow in my footsteps, but it surprised me. So, thank you, guys. Oh.
So as Uncle Andy was saying, when we started out, we did a lot of fundraising because, there were no grants back then. We were trailblazers. So we'd have seafood dinners in the summertime when the ferry came over 6 times a week, and we'd have them on, Thursday night or Friday night. And those of us who worked didn't cook. I worked, so I wasn't in the kitchen cooking. Thank goodness. I'm a singer. I'm not a cook. For all of my friends and family who know me, they know that. And we had a lot of really dedicated people who volunteered their time so we could raise the money. So it would take us 2 years of fundraising to be able to go on a trip. And there were people who joined us, who paid their own way, right? We'd have hotels and some food and our airfare. And then there were those who weren't living at home here, but wanted to be a part of all of this good work. And we had people coming from all different areas that were highest to join us. And so we went to New York and we went to Chicago. We went to Chicago and they had the worst rainstorm that they'd seen in years. And we went, well, it's because the highlanders are here. We did a trip to France too. Buja was there, and the same thing happened. They said, "Oh my God, we've never seen that much rain." We're like, "Oh,
And so when we went to New York, and we had others join us, and so as I talked about, the food burning, and our plan, we did say, we are pretty strong in our opinions and what we have to do. And I remember we were there and we were talking to the museum people, and thank you to all the museum people who built those relationships. And we said, we have to do a food burning. And they said, we can't have a fire in Central Park. And we just said, well, that's not our problem. You need to get a permit to have a fire so we can have a food burning, because we can't do anything with ancestors until we do that. So they figured it out. And I think, then that was a precursor to everybody else going, yeah, just get the fire permit, because this is what they have to do, because again, our protocol. And so I just want to introduce my brother, Gordon Mills, who's moved home a number of years ago, and he's on the band council, Skidegat Band Council, and he's a representative for repatriation. And my brother Gordon, when we first started this work, was living in Victoria. And so he paid for him and his wife to come on the trip so they could participate and be a part of that. They couldn't come back home all the time with us for the burial, but they came with us to help with that work. And I just appreciate that so much. And he's one of the strongest supports in the last few meetings I've been a part of, and hearing the thank yous. I'm not just proud because he's my brother, but that's that's good too. But so my brother Gordon, he's going to come up and speak a few words, because he's the Skidegat Band Council representative for repatriation, and he's got a long history with us in coming and joining us on these big things that happen in Chicago and New York.
Hello, everybody. I just want to say a real big hello to the University of Manitoba. It's nice to see you again. Like my sister said, it goes back a long way. Today, for me, was the occasion of full circle. Like my sister said, go to New York, Chicago, and Randy, or the one in Ohio, but did not partake in the final part of the ceremony. Today was my full circle. The interesting part is when I was come back from Chicago, my youngest son, walking in bed, and he said, do I have to do this or not? Do I have to do what you're doing? I said, no. By that time, you'll be going after our artifacts. That was taken. And that would figure out that we got that. And we're receiving our artifacts now. Stuff that was taken. I did not think I would see that in my lifetime. So there's a second part of this for me, which makes this very proud to be a Highland. It's interesting when we go out into the world and they know who we are, or what we've done. And you mentioned this at all. Yes, we're Highland. This is what we do. We are a proud people, but we understand where we come from and who was here before us. Our ancestors. It's hard, very hard. But when you do the good work that we've been doing, and the museums from around the world, and trying to help to make it right for us and other nations, is a good thing. Now, as an SBC elected official, I want to say hello to the Repatriation Committee for their hard work, and everybody that has stepped up and come forward to help us. Because it's not just an individual doing your hard work to help us move forward. We do feel some of us will have tears, but that is how we feel. Just want to say a really big hello to everybody for all your hard work and the continuation of this hard work. Hello.
Our board, we have one final speaker, but I just have a little bit to say first. There's two people here tonight who have contributed, there's many funders and everything will be listed as we said, we'll do that in the height of loss. But there's two people we invited tonight. I hope they are both still here, that or three people, their contributions didn't go directly towards these 2 days of ceremonies, but they contributed in the past 5 years, and it was very integral to the work we did. One of them is Shannon Bettles from Canadian Heritage, who I introduced, but I want to say how to, which one are you? Because there we are. I truly, you can ask people, I have facial recognition problems. Canadian Heritage back in 2018, a different funding officer at the time, but invited myself and some others to speak with Canadian Heritage, the bean counter people, okay, to learn about repatriation, because believe it or not, you heard how we used to fundraise, and now we're thanking grant agencies, but believe it or not, there's no designated funding for repatriation in Canada. So the province of BC did 3 designated repatriation grants between 2018 and 2022. And they have struck a BC repatriation policy framework project, and they're exploring how they can support repatriation, and it's an Indigenous-led journey they're on. Canadian Heritage is again, it's the people on the ground, and they do this work, and Canadian Heritage has put probably well over $300,000 in the last 5 years into the work we do, and I just really need to point this out to you, Shannon, for everyone else, and thank you, Shannon, and your team. First Peoples Cultural Council is another extraordinary funding agency, and Gretchen and Natalie were introduced earlier. They find any way they can to support the work we and First Nations across BC do. I want you to know I work on national committees and advisories. I'm not super in tune with other provinces, but I can tell you no other province or territory has a First Peoples Cultural Council, and we should be ever grateful to the work they do. It's not just funding, it's research, data collection, advocacy. They're brilliant. So how to the First Peoples Cultural Council. Sometimes we get individuals who donate. We have a cultural treasures fund on our website. I'm not trying to promote anything. We have a cultural treasures fund on our website in other ways. But a couple of years ago, Jonathan Smith and Robert Logstaff donated $6,000 to us in honor of Chief Gifford, the late John Williams, to help us with our acquisitions fund, because a lot of our belongings go up on auction. So we wanted to say hello to them. And in 2019, following the repatriation of belongings after, so 2 decades, we had a big exhibition in the museum called Yaku London to pay respect. And we tiled the walls with 1,500 images, 1,200 of our belongings. There's over 12,000 of them out in the world, and then other photos. When we have a program in the museum where we hire youth to inspire and provide them arts administration experience, and my daughter Koya was a colonizer and wanted to recycle those photos, and she was working closely with Cherie and Hainai and did this wall. She selected photos of belongings she would really like to see come home. And then my niece Tangwane and my other niece Riley were also working at the museum. Riley is Cherie's daughter, and Tangwane is Lauren's daughter, or my auntie Walken's daughter. And so they did a second wall together. Anyways, this beautiful wall is up where we're going to go shortly, and they named it Home Safe. And that's how we chose the name of what we're doing this evening. But when we had that show in 2019, Dr. Caroline Schumer, who's a medical practitioner here at Haida, and we're so grateful to have her in that capacity. Oh, there you are. And as a friend. She was so moved by that exhibition that and Caroline's a very quiet, unassuming person. And she just quietly got a hold of us and let us know how moved she was by that exhibition, how much she learned, how much she realized we were doing. And she donated $10,000 to our Haida Repatriation Committee, so 5 each, and in honor of her mother. So we really do want to make sure you guys get in the back. So we're going to call up our final speaker and then just a little bit of housekeeping to get you back there. But as we call on Doug Weiss, the president of the Haida Nation, I just have a couple things to say first, which is Doug Weiss has been our president since 2019. No, what, 2019? Before that, he was an elected rep within Skidegat, and he was able to participate regularly in our repatriation committee. He also worked in our museum, and it was from that experience that he knew and understood fundraising we were doing, and he was the one who got the CHN to start thinking about how they could also contribute to repatriation, even though it would be really better if everyone off island did it. That's just the province and pets. You know, Douglas, you saw that, and today we have an MOU with the Council of the Haida Nation to support this work that we're mandated to do. And even as president, he is always making sure our work is supported. But I'm calling him up as our president, Douglas.
First, I just want to say a big shout to our repatriation committees in Shpagilda, Alclage, collectively our Haida Repatriation Committee for all the work over many, many years and the collective efforts of our elders, some who are no longer with us, and passing on knowledge and picking up this work and carrying it on and passing it on, and bringing us all here today to share in this moment, this beautiful thing. I was really, like others have mentioned, really touched and honored to see so many more young people involved, participating today in looking after our ancestors and us helping with that Yakugam, that respect, that responsibility to make it right and put those bones back, bring those bones back here where they belong and putting them back to rest again. It's a very strange thing that we have to do that. It's not a normal thing to have to re-put your ancestors back to rest. Those are the kind of things that happen in times of war and conquer, and it's a really important part of making things right to be able to do that, to have our Haida people, Haida Nation work with our friends and allies in BC and Canada and the United States to make that happen. important part of that healing in this reconciliation process. So I really wanted to just speak to those who are still here, those young people who are part of that. As Giscon mentioned, keep up the work, keep committed to it, be part of the committee, be part of giving back how you can. It pays you back in many ways that you may not see immediately, but from first-hand experience was able to be a recipient of that giving from those in the committee and that knowledge and be part of that team doing this good work. And try to do as fast as I can so you can get down there and see the work. It's beautiful. I don't take advantage too much of the president if I get a chance, but I asked Sean to bring me down there earlier to take a look, so I got a sneak peek. But so I didn't have too many stories that I wanted to share, but it made me think of the fundraising, the work that goes into it. All of our IDA elders who taught us how to do things right, and it just made me think of Monique Brown, and made sure everything was done classy when we're hosting dinners and things, and spent many years keeping track of repatriation dishes and making sure they're all put away properly and tracked and cared for. And also had a personal opportunity to bring ancestors home from New York with my brother, like a special mission on behalf of the nation to be with our ancestral remains, right from the museum and all the way through customs in the airport, overnight in the hotel, on the plane, and get back to Vancouver back to Hawaii, and safely here. You know, quite a responsibility to be tasked with, and an honor to do that with my brother. Chance to travel to England, to London, to Oxford, to speak at Oxford University and share about the work that we're doing here. So, please keep giving back and be part of things, shoveling with Saul and Tees and Gunner. As Gord said, full circle moments of giving back and being part of the good work. So how to the committees and everybody who shares their part of themselves to be part of that work. And it's a fully all-encompassing work, spiritually, mentally, physically, to do that. Second is just again wanted to bless the young people. And also want to acknowledge Robert Davidson for his foresight in making sure our weaving is here for us, and that knowledge is passed on to the weavers, which you're seeing begin to flourish, or continue to flourish. But I also want to acknowledge our middle-aged work. I was acknowledged. James over here, over the BC Museum. My friend Gita Kujus, Walker Brown, who spent, I can't even tell you the amount of hours I know he spent personally researching everything IDA that's out there. Just to a great extent that forming this base of information for our committees and the museum to thoughtfully look at what are our priorities, what do we want to bring home, and going about it in this intelligent, strategic, thoughtful way. You'll get to see the fruit of that labor, some of that here today and the path that we're on, in bringing home our cultural treasures. And lastly, as others have touched on, to be able to have those here at home, part of that full circle, that journey with our ancestors, as Vanessa touched on too, and others, that we get to see how they work, how they think, to experience that firsthand when interacting directly with our treasures. But in that way that we're human. They lived here as we did, as we do, taking knowledge and inspiration and information and all those ways that they could gather it, and figured out how to create our visual language, how to strive to make a perfect object or a perfect representation of who we are in this world. You know, nothing's perfect, but it went beyond just providing housing and transportation and clothing to elevating that and bringing wealth and value into this world that we're continuing to share and pass on and benefit from. And I guess what I want to share is that opportunity for us as Haidas today and for Haidas tomorrow to not to make our own mark in this world in this time, and not to look up to them, but not as though they're greater than us. That we can try to find in our time our full human potential, the best that we can, to do the best that we can for now. And that is what we need to do, right now as Haida, to continue to do our work of reconciling and implementing our title and rights, is to find our best of our human potential, to do that, to add that value and that wealth to what we have today, and do it in a better way than what was imposed upon us, and how do we change these systems and improve things so these things don't happen again, but that we can sustain ourselves here in a good way. And the same goes for our friends, our allies in the museum system, government systems, and whatever walk of life. To all of us to find the best of ourselves and the best of our potential as humans to respond to the challenges in front of us, and look to the past for inspiration and guidance, and take them to what's in front of us today and everything that we're confronted with. So it's inspiring and uplifting, and enjoy the experience.
So just before we end, it's just a little bit of extra notes and a little bit of housekeeping here. So I just want to thank again Dr. Guavina and Dr. Kitzbühel that we could have Haida here and Haida Print today. Want to re-thank our committee members, our Haida Gwaii Museum, and our greater community, and everyone who came from away. It takes everyone to do this work. I want to recognize Captain Gold, who was an he was a founding member of Skidegat Repatriation. A founding member of the Haida Gwaii Museum, and has been at the start of many things that have turned out great for our people and the rest of the world. I'm really glad you're here today, Captain Gold. I want to share a really quick story. I'm sorry, I need to share this story, but I just have to ask Aya something. So we do now have funders. They're not necessarily designated funding for repatriation. But also the museums themselves have really stepped up, okay? And I'm not going to take a ton of time, we'll put it in the paper, but I want to give two examples from two ends of museums, because the majority of museums in British Columbia have one employee and many volunteers, and that used to be pretty much our museum at one point. Some museums have no employees, and they're run all by volunteers. And then you have the Canadian Museum of History, our good friend, that's got a big budget. Hey, but it doesn't mean that they're rich, but they've got a really big budget. They've got hundreds of people working for them. Right? So I want to honor these two institutions with all of you understanding that the other ones have given as they can too, okay, and I'll list them, but these are the examples. The Canadian Museum of History, we've been working with since 2000. In 2024, we signed an MOU with them to form a pathway for repatriation. That included some annual money to help us travel out there. They were able to provide an awful lot more money than they could in the past, although they would try in the past too, I want you to know that. But to help with the ceremonies and our travel. So I just really want to recognize that, you know, you're a big institution, you don't have tons of extra money, but you are showing your dedication to reconciliation, reparation, and coexistence in the budget, and that says a lot. On the other side is an example would be the Hastings Mills Museum, and is it 2 years ago or not? 2024, how big were. So Anita came up, and the Hastings Mills Museum, and I apologize if I get anything wrong, is run entirely by volunteers. And Anita's at the center. And they were reading the Indigenous Repatriation Handbook, which myself and Lucy and Glenn Neal co-authored at a book club hosted by the BC Museums Association. And they were so inspired, and they realized they had some boxes in their museum. And Anita is a volunteer, and the museum doesn't have a lot of money. And she pulled in her friends from BC Hydro and used her points. Like, the friends from BC Hydro were to pick her up after she used her points to get on the plane to bring these boxes up here. So that's what I mean about we want people to want this to happen, and thank our leadership, thank our elders for their wisdom, relationships first. So we will be having an end of mourning for our ancestors, but we have more ancestors to bring home, so that might be in about 7 to 10 years. But you know, keep your calendars open. We will publish the rest of the hours in higher loss. I apologize we couldn't spend more time on that because every contribution makes today possible. Whether even the hugs, you know, even the smiling faces, even the hellos. But now we're going to send you down to the end of the hallway. So if I can just get some of our colonizers back there, they haven't already gone back. When you go down there, it's at the very far end of the museum. We ask for reasons of safety and security. Please, no matter how much you want to, please don't touch. There's lots of small things that could fall and break. We don't know what has been treated with poison yet and what hasn't. But what there is a sign-up sheet in the back, so you can leave your name and contact information if you see something, you're an artist, you want to spend time with a belonging or an artwork, you can do that and we'll follow it up. And in about 3 months, most of these pieces will be on exhibit for a year. So before we conclude, I'll just hand this over to Irene.
Hello, I just actually want to say a big hello to Nika for all the work that she does for this museum and the guidance and the leadership that she gives everybody on her staff and the mentoring that she does to help this nation build the capacity. So I just want to say a big hello to you.
How about you? Go enjoy home safe. How about you?
you can take pictures of the objects if you want to be able to like share a story too, right? So pictures are okay, touching is not okay.
Trying to get this guy in action. They're really fast. Oh, it's good with that. Which one's that? Yeah. Well, that's good. Just refresh.
Yeah, I need you guys to stay close to me, please.
Oh, wait.
That was so funny.
Kicking in on OBS.
Transition.
And you're switching to
Sorry?
switch to the
You want me to go now? So I'm going?